Tonight's episode of the New Way podcast contains adult content and spoilers from the latest Marvel juggernaut film, Avengers: Infinity War. Listener discretion is advised.
Hear me and rejoice. You have had the privilege of being saved by the New Way podcast. You may think this is suffering. No, it is salvation. Be thankful that your meaningless lives have now tipped the universal scales toward balance because of your sacrifice. Smile, for even in death, you have become children of the New Way.
Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off. What are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Man, what are we, a team? No. We're a chemical mixture that makes chaos. We're a time bomb.
There's only one God, man. And I'm pretty sure he doesn't dress like that.
Is it better to be feared or respected? And I say, is it too much to ask for both?
Everybody wants to be naked and famous. Everybody wants to be just like me. I'm naked.
Will you help teach me about this? What is it? A new way?
Hello, everyone out there, and welcome to the New Way podcast, coming to you about twice a month at this point. But you know what? It's worth it every time because it's hard to concentrate the gold that we deliver on a regular basis into multiple times during a month. I mean, I don't think those out there could. I don't think Greg Klein could handle a weekly podcast.
He's scared of commitment.
I was just thinking about my sex life. It's like, no, just joking.
No. Finish that thought. We've got this far. How is it like your sex life? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
You only do it a couple of times a month because you can only concentrate so much awesome.
That's right.
And when you do, it's amazing.
And when you do, it's amazing.
Every
Sparks
time
fly.
Ben whips his dick out.
All right.
Right there, right on the bed.
We have to go back after my refractory period.
That was not true.
That was very believable. I've seen better acting and tough acting to acting.
You talked about a refractory period joke.
Refractory. We got your refractory period joke. It's all good. Calm down.
Just making sure.
Remove my cap so I can get closer.
It's been
to
a
the
while,
microphone.
so I want to make sure.
So we are back again, and we will. You know what? We record when we record, and you guys love it, and we thank you for listening to it. Whoever our new people out there, hopefully are still
ways back. All right.
Hopefully the folks out there are still listening.
Sing the BSB after NSYNC was just immortalized in the Walk of Fame in Hollywood? How dare you?
I mean, it would be a lot better, I think, if I'd prepared something.
It's gonna be May.
But
shit, it is no longer May.
That's right. I'm the master. I have all drops for all things at all times.
When
So
I saw Matt's eyes glow for a second and then fiddle with the mouse as he stalled for time. I knew something was coming.
The problem is it's still the new board, so I'm like, what letter is it's gonna be May? It's unfortunately O, because oh my god, we got to play that a lot.
It is May.
It's gonna be May.
Yeah, that's right. It's gonna be May. It is May.
He clearly says May. It's not an accent. It's not his Tennessee accent. We have an expert over here in Tennessee accent.
But I do like
He
that.
clearly says May.
I like that. Is it Corn finally admitted they're like you and I are meant for May, which that forever has been. You look just like Padme. You and I make macrame. Something takes you a part of May. So I'm glad.
Jonathan Davis?
Everyone,
Or is it the guy who does Garfield, or is that Corn?
No, it's
that is the same. John Davis is Garfield. I think you're right.
I can't remember.
It's something Davis.
Jonathan Davis is the lead singer of Korn.
I think he also does Garfield. Am I wrong?
That's John Davis.
It's just,
This is just John Davis.
Because his narcissism named the main character who owns Garfield after himself?
John Arbuckle.
Well, still John. Still John.
Just a John.
Just saying.
So we are excited this week to be talking to you. In case you didn't listen to the opening of the podcast, spoiler alert: we are going to be digging in toward the second half of this episode very heavily into Avengers
Infinity War.
Infinity Wars.
That's your version. You're like,
We have a great affinity for these wars.
I have an affinity for the arts. We are the Avengers. So we will be digging into heavy spoiler territory.
We can't keep it in any longer.
But we got to talk about it. That the energy's got to go somewhere. I mean, it's not going to Ben having
I
sex with
don't
his
know.
wife, obviously, because that would be too much awesomeness in too quick amount of time. But
I don't know if you call that back, honestly.
yeah. Oh no, that's always going to get called back. So
please don't.
I don't know, Matt. I'm hurting. I've been.
You're hurting.
I'm gonna throw out the first spoiler out there, and it's a big one.
Uh-oh.
You ready?
I don't.
Turn off the podcast if you don't want to be spoiled. I don't know what to do about Peter Parker. I know he's gonna be back. I know he's gonna be back.
You know
but
he's gonna be back.
But Spider-Man's death has haunted me since I saw it.
It is easily. We're gonna get there. We are gonna get there.
So
I don't
here's the
want to
thing.
do it right now because I will cry.
We'll get there because it's not a death. It's not a non-screen death. But
I knew that then. I know it now, and it has haunted me.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And
We'll get there. We'll get there.
Tom Holland in this movie doesn't get the big laughs. He doesn't get the big
got some pretty good
scenes,
laughs. He's
got
but
some
he's
pretty good
got,
ones.
well, I would say more or less, he's actually more of a weighty performance from Tom Holland than almost anyone else
You know,
in the
he
film.
improvised his.
Yeah, I read that.
Yeah, his death scene.
But he's normally charming and funny, and that's why we love him. And in this movie, he really was just kind of along for the ride, and kind of gave the spotlight back to some of the old Avengers and the new Avengers. And
Jesus Christ. You're such a Spider-Man fanboy. It's just so funny to listen to.
Spider-Boy was a lame experiment in 1992. How dare you?
I don't think he took a back seat. I thought he was super funny.
Yeah, exactly.
I
thought he was very
We'll
critical.
get there. We'll get there. Let's slow down.
Well,
Let's slow down.
all I'm saying is Tom Holland had a chance to really flex some dramatic muscle in this, I think. And was the crux of a lot of emotional storylines, which I thought was cool that they gave that to Spider-Man. But he pulled it off.
It's good. It's great stuff in there, and we'll get there. So as I was saying, spoiler alert. and if you're
Sorry, am I moving too fast for you?
we'll get there. We'll get there. So what's really interesting, and I pulled
Thwip, motherfucker, thwip.
I was kind of pulling a lot of sound bites from earlier Marvel movies from the MCU, right? So specifically, we're going to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which started in 2008 with Iron Man, Jon Favreau's Iron Man, and is now up to Avengers Infinity War as 19 movies, I believe.
Would be the 18th.
18th, somewhere around there. They'll be around 20 or 21 by the time they get to the end of what they consider to be.
There are two more. Before
Their main big push. But it
You
is
don't have the title yet, Ben. Don't presuppose here.
It is an unprecedented feat that they have accomplished, and it was something that was similar to the Harry Potter movies that I really liked as well, where you're watching a story evolve like you would a TV show over 10 years with the same most of the same people.
Ed Norton,
Look,
cough.
we got a new Banner, we got a new Dumbledore. It's the same thing, right? It happens in some of the movies.
Oh, and it is.
I put Dumbledore higher on the hierarchy.
Similar to the Potter series, with the films, you have a varying level of quality that you do with the movies.
Absolutely.
But no Hermione.
But that keep a bar at a certain level where it's definitely not going to drop to something that's just completely unwatchable.
No, the worst of any of these movies
Like
is
Iron
still
Man 3?
better than 80% or 70% of what's out there, especially in what we have to talk about in this first part of the podcast, is what the hole that DC has dug themselves into with their movies. That is kind of amazing to see this happening when so in 2008, two things happened the summer of 2008: The Dark Knight and Iron Man. Dark Knight hits in July. Iron Man hits in August. There were no tentpole Marvel movies. They put it in that August, like that wild west zone.
Let's see if it.
Let's see if we can do anything in it. We don't know. It's got this uninsurable.
Which is the Dark Knight was the surefire hit. Which the viral, like there was a marketing campaign that was viral that started in like December the year before that. That had people literally like going around their towns to find markers.
The Why So Serious.
And doing the Why So Serious thing. I mean, it was this huge viral campaign that was just insane. I had never seen anything like it back then in 2007, 2008.
And we hadn't gotten a good glimpse of the Joker at that point, but they kept seeing this like kind of weird sort of scarred face. And I remember a lot of people I was talking to were like, that's not what the Joker's going to look like. You can't sell toys that look like that. No one's going to buy a toy with that face. And they did. They still sold the toys. They're terrifying, but DC hit its probably the height. Other than, I mean,
it seems
89
like,
Batman
seems like an
is
eternity
pretty
ago,
huge.
doesn't it?
Well, so 2008 was also the year. It was 2006 when Returns came out, right? Yeah, 2006.
Yeah, 5 or 6.
Yeah, it was 6. It was definitely 6 because I saw it in Delray when I lived down here. And so I remember that movie doing well, but having a little bit of buyer's remorse about, it wasn't the Superman movie that wanted. I still remember the whole thing was Kevin Smith was just like, I love the X-Men movies. I was expecting to see gay Superman, but I ended up seeing gay Superman. I ended up seeing Messiah Superman.
Oh, you're saying Return? I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about Batman Begins. You're talking about Superman Returns.
I'm talking about Superman Returns.
Batman Returns was in way before that.
Yeah.
And he didn't live in.
You're right.
Ben didn't live in Delray for.
No.
For
You're right.
Danny
You're talking
DeVito.
about Superman Returns.
I said Superman
Yeah.
Returns.
Sorry.
You didn't say. You didn't specify which returns.
Oh,
There are
I'm saying
2
years-
DC returns.
Okay, so Superman,
but not in the
Returns.
box office. If you know what
Superman
I mean.
Returns. Back in 2006. But the whole thing is, I remember Kevin Smith being just like, he's like, if he's Superman, have him punch something. Like, have him punch a gay robot. Like, have him punch. Like, he was like, that was his big thing about that movie. But so there was a little bit of kind of that waffling after the kind of, I think, almost unexpected success of Batman Begins,
Sure.
And then The Dark Knight came out and was a revelation, and everyone said DC's on their game now.
Well, you could
DC
argue
has found.
You could argue that Sam Raimi's Spider-Man brought the superhero genre back, but then DC said, you know what, Marvel, you aren't the MCU yet. We can show you up. And they were sort of like the Dallas Cowboys.
Well,
they had a bunch of Super Bowls way back. They haven't made the playoffs in decades. And now, all of a sudden, they're kind of the laughingstock of the league.
Well, there was a big trajectory with X-Men. X-Men hit first, and then the following summer was Spider-Man, which is huge.
X-Men was the big,
and X-Men
big one.
wasn't huge. It didn't have a huge opening, but it had a huge run. It was one of those that people were like, people didn't know. The last superhero movie other than the Blade movies that really anyone had gone to see was Batman and Robin. So the expectations for X-Men were kind of low, other than everyone loved seeing Wolverine in the trailer, right? And seeing the claws come out. And then you go and watch X-Men, and for what it was, for what it could be, which it didn't have a lot going for it. It had a shit budget. They got screwed around by a lot of it.
It had been
was
a long
really
time.
Good.
It had been a long time in between the last big thing.
It was 3 or 4 years.
And you wouldn't put Blade in the category of Wolverine and Cyclops or Spider-Man, but both Sam Raimi's Spider-Man and Brian's X-Men were that's what I feel like you can look back in time, and that was the moment where it started to make the MCU possible.
Sure. Well, I mean, Spider-Man and
made it
Spider-Man
viable.
2 were humongous.
But those were
fucking
Sony.
movies.
Those weren't Marvel Cinematic Universe.
No, and they were, but they were Marvel characters that had not ever.
exactly.
Up until that point, you had Superman and Batman.
That's
there were cartoons.
Exactly.
There were some live action. No one that was not a comic. I was not a comic book fan. So there was Superman and there was Batman. I knew who Spider-Man was, but I didn't know any specifics at
Peter
all.
Parker, actually.
Including, by the way, well, even funnier. I remember that I heard the rumor in '97 they were going to cast Leonardo DiCaprio and James Cameron Spider-Man when they're doing that. And I'm
Turn off the light.
And my reaction was, he's a kid. It's Spider-Man. Why would they cast a kid as Spider-Man? Because I didn't know.
Because you weren't well versed in the mythology and the mythos of
Do you
Spider-Man.
remember what the live-action TV show Spider-Man looked like? It was a fucking adult man in his 30s. It was not. He was not a high school student.
It may have been a Reeve.
He had beautiful hair. I mean, just lovely,
Wow.
beautiful blonde hair. But no, so I
you
didn't know.
And not enough is said about the hair in early Spider-Man. Think about it. Peter Parker has a real smooth coif, and when you look at don't even get me started on the Osborns with that greasy, oil slick
I kinda
dream.
like the Osborn hair, but
Yeah, me too.
No, it was it was a really interesting time of what was happening in 2000 to 2004. And then Nolan came on, and I think the problem with a lot of DC right now is that Nolan was successful going towards the quote-unquote back to reality thing, which was basically okay, he's not going to be in spandex. We're going to have real-world answers for why does the Batmobile exist, and why does he have a suit, and how does all this shit work, which is fine. And yeah, it was a little grittier than some of the other stuff. It wasn't as pulpy as Tim Burton's Batman. But the problem is, I think DC saw those successes and thought that's why it was a success. And I'm looking at those, I'm going, no, it's Chris Nolan.
It was Nolan. Knows
how to shoot a scene. He cast it impeccably well.
Wait a second. Wait,
I know you're going to get on. You're going to shit on the Nolan thing.
You just said that the reason why the Chris Nolan movie worked because he knows how to shoot a scene. I'm sorry, the action sequences in Batman Begins are fucking horrendous. They are so bad. And you could watch.
But he made a good movie. He made a good movie.
No, the movie was good.
You get the feeling that you don't get many flashbacks of
I
Nolan.
think the movies are good. The movies are good because of the characterizations and the performances, and it's not just because it's gritty and real.
I was getting there. I'm not talking about Begins necessarily. I'm talking about Dark Knight. I think has great action scenes.
It does not. It's completely. It's so hard to watch because it jumps the line so much.
Hold on one second. Let me just say one thing, okay? Chris Nolan, you get the impression when you watch one of his Batman films, and they're all good. You can have your you can have your problems with the action scenes, whatever, and it's qualified or whatever. But you don't picture Chris Nolan as a kid curled up in his childhood home reading Batman comics. He had a take that worked, and he's a competent filmmaker. So those films did really well. But the difference between DC now and Marvel is DC doesn't have a Feige. He doesn't have someone who is an actual fan and can put the puzzle pieces together and build a universe. Nolan was a good vision, but it had gotten old by the time I got to Bane. That movie is really bad.
I didn't have a problem with the action scenes of those. I felt that X-Men 2 had my favorite action scenes and up to that point, especially with the Nightcrawler in the White House.
Ironically, Bryan Singer was criticized because he didn't know how to frame a fight scene for the first
which
X-Men
I think
movie.
is well, I mean, the first one that doesn't have it was a little clunky.
It was very clunky. It reminds me of actually of a lot of Nolan's problems, is that he doesn't understand how to frame them.
What's also kind of
Nolan never took advantage of underage boys on the plus side.
What's funny about all of this, though, is that a lot of people will argue nothing has changed as far as the MCU goes either, as far as action scenes go. And there's a lot of I'm having the discussion. This is not my personal opinion, but there are a lot of people that contest that a lot of the Marvel movies have very formulaic action scenes, or they have not inventive action scenes, which I don't agree with.
Those people bought the Harley Quinn Hot Toys figurine.
I don't think that the argument is that they have formulaic action scenes. I think the idea is that they have a formulaic structure. That every movie is exactly the same.
They hit the action too.
So the action, yes, the action's exactly the same in Thor Ragnarok as it is in Iron Man 2. It's a bullshit.
I agree that it's a bull. I also agree that the structure is. I have a lot of problems with a lot of the gripes that are on MCU, especially ones that are coming from DC fans that are trying to defend DC over MCU. Because we watched Justice League, and it's just a fucking mess of.
It's entertaining though. I've said this much. We watched it together, and I was surprised. I was entertained the whole time. It's a Michael Bay Armageddon scale of. It's a 10 on the entertainment scale, but it's not a good movie.
I was not
Suicide Squad and Batman vs. Superman are borderline unwatchable. But Justice League is at least... It's a bad film. A lot of things are bad with it, but I didn't ever want to turn it off. That's the best thing I can say about a DC film.
I thought it was worse than any of their other ones.
I thought Batman vs. Superman was... of course, I watched it like a year after it came out, and I was expecting it to be a lot worse. It was still bad, but there were moments in it where I was just like, I like that moment.
It has the best Batman action scene of any Batman movie, which I'll argue.
The one after...
At the warehouse.
At the warehouse. That is pretty cool, actually.
Not the desert scene with the special...
No.
Desert Storm Batman figurine.
The Batman raiding the warehouse to go and save Martha is a great scene.
It may be the best that they've gotten Batman since a Nolan film, for sure. And I remember seeing that in L.A. with Ben Monstre. And Ben, we had actually gone to the Anaheim Comic-Con that day. He snuck in a whiskey flask and was drinking heavily throughout the day. Met up with a friend, then said, you know what, let's keep this party going. He refilled his flask at a liquor store. We go to see it at a theater in LA, East LA. And Ben is the most out of control I'd ever seen him in a film. He was screaming out lines in the middle of the film, being totally disrespectful to everyone who had paid money for a ticket. every 5 minutes, and no one called him on it because they were actually getting more entertainment out of his drunken outbursts than what was on the screen.
Yeah, and I think so. I mean, so DC has dug this hole, and part of what they're doing, which I think is part of what their problem is that they're trying to play catch up, which is a stupid thing to do. Especially to race to what Marvel did, and where I'm kind of going with this, because I think it's really important to the discussion of why I think Infinity Wars works and why I vehemently disagree with the critics that call it bloated and overstuffed and not enough time and then all this stuff, is that Marvel took its time over a decade to build characters, to build actors in those roles, to let those actors evolve, so that
the consistency is incredible.
It doesn't matter in Infinity War if someone only gets 5 minutes, because that 5 minutes is attached to everything that's happened over the last decade with that character. Everything works because there is a history and a pathos for those people, and that's how the comics are. Like, the comics are constantly bringing people in for a panel or two things or whatever it is, and you go, oh, I get it, because they don't need more. We don't need any build-up. We don't need anything that's going on. And when DC tries to do that with new characters, it doesn't work. But what's fascinating to me about all of this is that even the times where Marvel does rush it a little bit, which they did with both Spider-Man and Black Panther, they made arguably some of those characters' best moments are in their quick introductions in Civil War, which I honestly think that the best Black Panther is the Black Panther from Civil War. I think it's better Black Panther than he even is in his own standalone movie. And he's got to carry a lot of weight in a very small amount of time against 10 established characters.
I would argue that that's the one thing that DC has done correctly, is working on that backwards path with Wonder Woman, which is where they introduce Wonder Woman in Batman vs. Superman, and then they have Wonder Woman in her own standalone movie. She has she has absolutely zero weight in that movie, the way that she shows up, and they don't take advantage of her at all in that movie, except for a couple of good action set pieces at the end of the movie, and that's pretty much it.
Don't give DC any credit. Let's move on.
No. Wonder Woman is a great
movie. It's a fucking awesome movie.
Wonder Woman is such a good movie that I want her distanced from everything else they do. I want her quarantined.
Do you know why
Kristen Wiig is good? Takes her leopard spots. It'll be distancing.
It's because DC gave Patty Jenkins the reins, and they say, you make the movie that you want to make, and they let her make the movie. She said she had absolutely zero oversight with that.
And neither did Zack Snyder.
Well, so there you go. And there's
Zack Snyder. You can't visit the Wonder Woman.
First of all, that's not true. Zack Snyder was completely under Jonathan Nolan and Christopher Nolan, who were crafting that universe,
right?
To make it dark and make it gritty and do their combination of the old and the new. Look, I'm not gonna. There's no apologies for me for Zack Snyder. I think he made a mess of a couple of movies, and not even the parts that people really like Man of Steel. Everyone always shits on the Kevin Costner.
Dawn of the Dead is
maybe
excellent.
You should let them die line, which I actually am. That's the most fascinating part of that movie, is watching a Pa Kent that's not necessarily giving Superman the moral compass. The rest of the movie is just boring and shitty. But yeah, I think DC is in this terrible moment right now where, I mean, all they've got is Wonder Woman, which means it's theirs to fuck up.
Let me ask you a serious question.
Yeah.
Are you guys, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being no fucking way, and 10 being I have absolute confidence, what would you say DC is on their way to for a Flashpoint film? Can they handle a time-traveling Flash film? And I loved the casting for Flash. I loved Ezra getting in there. But to me, every line in Justice League, even if it was written and it was funny on the paper, as much as I love Ezra, those reads, every single joke fell flat. Do you really, the complexity of the Flashpoint storyline, do you have any faith in them whatsoever to even make a C- film?
Well, what's funny is you enjoyed that movie more than I did. You found it entertaining, whereas I found the only watchable thing to be Ezra Miller. And the only watchable parts of Ezra Miller were the parts clearly written by Joss Whedon, where he makes his Pet Cemetery jokes, and which made me laugh super hard. It's Lord and Miller doing... not Lord... Is it Lord and Miller? Or is
Lord
it...
Miller.
Yeah, are doing it.
Lego.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, Lord Miller fired off of Solo. Lord Miller.
Are you still watching Last Man on Earth? By the way?
Yes, I am.
You are.
Good stuff.
Oh, I hear it's so good. I have not
We'll
followed
get
up.
over there. We'll get.
Are we gonna get?
We'll
there?
talk after the podcast.
That's the next podcast. Okay,
That's the
after
podcast.
Got it. Sorry.
I
Focus.
mean, I don't look. The problem I think with DC is that they're
They're ruled by Warner Brothers now, and they don't have a.
Can I rewind this a little bit?
Yeah.
First off, Nick, what was your introduction to comics?
Like first introduction?
Yeah.
That's easy actually. My uncle would babysit me and my sister on the times that my parents would go out for a night, and instead of like getting a movie or a bedtime story, my uncle would literally just tell me his recollection of superhero origins. And then in middle school, I never read comics, but I traded comic cards, like baseball cards, that would have little blurbs in the back, and they would tell you what their powers were, and have little bar graphs.
I have them too.
But
I still have some.
I didn't do any deep dives, and it's funny, like not until I was an adult, a 30-year-old man, did I actually go back and read. Like I just ordered Infinity Gauntlet, the Starlin Infinity Gauntlet that I've not. Infinity Gauntlet.
Infinity Gauntlet.
Ermagerd,
it's the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yes, the Infinity Gauntlet. And I haven't read it yet, but it's only now that I've actually started reading comics. But my uncle, for sure. Dressing up like Batman and terrorizing people on Halloween.
I think I saw some of like the Justice League cartoons maybe when I was a kid, but it was the Batman.
The Super Friends, you mean?
Yeah, some of the Super Friends stuff, and I had a couple of like little action figures, but it was Adam West Batman was my introduction to essentially superheroes, and
But
even though
for a lot of people,
I'm
I bet.
also just talking about comics specifically, like comics, not even the properties that
I've yet to read one all the way through. No, I'm
You
real
don't do
close.
too well with comics, right?
No, I have like a weird. It's almost like a dyslexia thing. I have a really hard time reading paneled comics. So my friend Ken, who was huge into comics, same kind of like how you're talking about when you're like in your 30s. I was probably late 20s when Ken and I were hanging out a lot. It's like around Spider-Man 2 and that kind of stuff, and the X-Men movies.
Was Ken a DC or a Marvel man?
He was more Marvel. Daredevil was his guy.
Okay.
Daredevil was his.
Then I
his
gave you
character.
permission to compare me with Ken.
Yeah, no,
Good man.
Ken's. If you're
man.
listening, Ken Posner. But yeah,
Daredevil's a shit.
So the first comic book property, other than like being obsessed with Batman because he had all the toys, he just had the best toys, and I like that kind of shit.
The Ralph Bakshi porno comics?
When the X-Men came out, and especially
Heavy Metal?
X2, like something about that movie awoke the comic nerd in me to where I was like, I want to fucking learn more about Magneto. I want to learn more about all of these different characters. So he recommended. I still have I have these 3 volumes of X-Men comics. They're in huge books. They're out. No, they're not in here. I pointed that way because it's out in the bookcase.
Ian McKellen and Alan Cumming awakened this in you that you never knew was inside of you.
Yeah, the big theater geek guys, of course. But
It's coming inside of you.
So I tried.
All right.
I tried
All
reading
right.
those, and I'm like, I can't fucking. And he's telling me about Cable. He's telling me about like all of these, like the time travel.
Oh, he was
all
a
this
Rob
stuff.
Liefeld man.
Like
Ooh.
he would tell me about constant,
Look at
like
this
give me
guy.
read comic stuff. to
Ken,
me.
call into the podcast.
And every time I try to get into it, and I'm like, I can't read these things. The only ones I ever made it all the way through, I did Watchmen, I did the Dark Knight Returns, right? The Alan, that's Alan Moore.
Alex Allen Moore.
No, you're thinking of
Return-
Frank.
Frank, yes.
Frank Miller.
Frank Miller.
You're right.
Maryland native.
Alan Moore.
And I read
Watchmen.
And I read the one bad day, the Joker origin with him as the guy where he's the joke. He's the comedian.
Not Killing Joke?
Killing Joke. Yes.
Yeah.
The reason why I was asking is just because I feel like growing up, I mean, it's so interesting because I never read any Marvel comics. I never read any Marvel properties. I had an anthology of literally every single Batman comic published. It was about 4 inches thick.
Yeah.
And it was every Batman comic from inception to like 1977. And I read that thing. I read every single Batman comic from beginning to end at least 5 times. And then then of course that led me into Superman, Justice League, and I was big into that. We didn't have a de facto comic shop at that time in Chattanooga. And so all I would get are the new, were the new issues that happened to maybe weren't picked off of the stands, with a Piggly Wiggly or whatever, which was it was always very slim pickings.
The Winn-Dixie.
But then I got into the book versions, because then it got to the point where
the young adult graphic novelizations.
No. The graphic. So the graphic, the series would come out. And then they would, once an arc was done, they would write a literal book about it.
See, that's what I need.
And then you could read
the young adult novelizations.
No, and that's what I would read. I
read a Carnage in New York book that still sticks with me to this day, and it was a young adult novelization, like 250 pages by some. It was at one point a New York Times bestseller, fell on hard times, and made a young adult novelization of Carnage and Spider-Man that was actually better than it needed to be.
And this actually predated YA before it was actually like an actual thing.
Bankable.
So I can't read the comics, so I read the wikis. And I not just like the Wikipedia, but like I'll go into the Marvel thing.
And James Gunn's Twitter.
I'll go through all the characters, go through all that shit.
But the reason why I wanted to do that little exercise is because I was so inundated with the entire culture of DC growing up.
Sorry, how did you get into comics, man? That was so rude of us. We didn't even ask you.
I just told
you.
You just said it.
I feel bad. We just
I just told you
about ourselves.
I told you. I mean, the only thing besides the DC is I was huge into Eastman and Laird. Had the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 89 to 95 anthology. I was obsessed with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yep, that's Ben Wilson recording.
But mostly it was DC. But the thing that I thought was so interesting is the only thing I really remember being exposed to as a kid from the Marvel Universe was I watched the X-Men cartoon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and the Batman animated series cartoon.
That was DC.
Yeah.
I'm saying, but only thing from any sort of extended Marvel universe that I had any sort of. Because I didn't read Spider-Man.
The cartoons were huge. The Spider-Man cartoon, X-Men, Batman animated series, the Tim from Wings. The guy from Wings was the voice of Superman. Yeah, Tim Daly.
I liked Batman the animated series, but like I said, I didn't even watch Spider-Man. It was all
X-Men.
The only thing was really X-Men. It was the big deal for me.
I love that Spider-Man cartoon.
And so actually my reintroduction into the Marvel Universe really wasn't until the first X-Men movie came out. Because I watched the cartoons, but I'd never read a single X-Men comic.
That's another reason why the X-Men movies do deserve some trailblazing credit as well. Is that what Marvel's doing right now with multiple superheroes is and that's why I like the X-Men series.
Yeah, that's what they did.
Because it wasn't just one Spider-Man who has to fucking sit and lie to his friends and family and, what predicament will he be in this week where he can't tell Mary Jane that he's Spider-Man, but he's got to try to say, and I was like, those, and Superman as well, was just those secret identities used to drive me nuts, whereas the X-Men were the X-Men. Wolverine doesn't have a fucking secret identity. He's just a fucking guy with weird hair.
Well, no one knew his identity.
In a suit, and someone, Cyclops.
He didn't even know his name.
Cyclops has Cyclops isn't under
Scott Summers.
I know he's not in disguise. I know Scott Summers.
All right.
I know Eric Lenscher, the only Jewish fucking character in all of comics.
Not true. Moon Knight is Jewish.
Who's Moon Knight?
Well, keep your dial tuned to Netflix. That's your next Netflix.
They're going to make
series. Kevin
Adam
Feige
Pally
talked
was
about
on talking
Moonlight.
About how there's no Jewish superheroes.
Moonlight was not. It's a different film.
Oh, that was a good movie.
But yeah, Moon Knight is an awesome character. My uncle would love that I'm giving him screen time here.
Nice.
But Feige actually brought him up because it's a fan favorite, and they think it's a little bit darker. It's a superhero that was given his powers by an Egyptian god because he died at the foot of an Egyptian god statue. Imbued him with the powers of the moon god, but he's schizophrenic and has multiple personalities in New York City, I think.
Kind of like a Legion.
Yeah, actually totally like Legion.
Jewish Legion. The Jewish Legion.
Jewish Legion. But it might be an unpopular opinion, but my favorite X-Men film is X3. After Matthew Vaughn dropped out a week before they started shooting, so they just filled in Brett Ratner, and then he took a cue from a viral video and made one of the Vin. Well, what is it? Vinny was the Juggernaut guy who said literally said I'm the Juggernaut bitch.
I'm the Juggernaut bitch.
Oh,
that's
God.
right.
Good Lord.
Well, but what I was trying to kind of get to
that drop
is that I being only exposed to a lot of the DC comics growing up, I didn't read comics really in college. I got to the point where I was just reading books. Like I was like, oh yeah, it's not, whatever. But I got really interested, and this is right after college, actually right as about all of the Batman Begins and that sort of stuff was coming out, was that I realized that I would be online in these online forums, and everyone was talking about how these great kind of standalone series in the Marvel universe, like the Iron Man Demon in a Bottle, or whether it was or some of the Silver Surfer stuff, like with and also just the entire thing with the Lantern Corps.
Your cosmic comics influence.
Which, yes, lots of cosmic. I never read Guardians of the Galaxy
James
along
Gunn.
those lines, but I got introduced to some of these base storylines. I would read the storylines to be like, I got to read this comic, and so that's what got me excited for Iron Man. When Iron Man came out, because I got really excited about that early on, even when Tom Cruise was supposed to be Iron Man back in 2004, 2005, and I forgot who was originally supposed to direct that movie, but I can't imagine what would have happened if that movie was... Just imagine that movie 3 years before that with Tom Cruise.
Chris Columbus directing.
It wasn't Chris... but it was somebody... It was somebody who wasn't...
I mean, they had McG was attached to a bunch of things.
M.
at that
Night-
time.
Superman. M. Night
Superman,
Shyamalan.
yeah. No, well, so it's,
That's how Brandon Routh got cast, is because McG brought in Brandon Routh for an audition, for a callback, and taped it, and then,
because he was a dead ringer for Christopher Reeve,
and then Singer saw it and was just like, this guy is hot.
What's so funny about that's terrible and true, but what's so funny about the space thing? So my shaman Ken for the comics thing. The one thing he hated about Marvel is like every fucking character goes to space. He goes, that's why I like Spider-Man and Daredevil, because
his character. Wait.
He did,
his characters were Spidey and Daredevil.
He mainly liked Daredevil because he goes, Daredevil's not going to space. He can't see. There's no way Daredevil winds up
Marvel's
in space.
Batman. He's the wait. Where were? Why have I not met Ken? Can we hang out?
I'll bring Ken around.
Let's get a
You
beer,
and Ken
Ken.
would have a great conversation.
I love this guy.
But no, his whole thing was like he goes, and I didn't get it back then. He's like, every fucking Marvel thing is about going to space. Every fucking character at some point winds up inexplicably in space.
Well, Spidey does go to space. Spoiler alert.
Well, he goes, except for Daredevil. He's like, that's why Daredevil's my guy.
Because he's in the Netflix MCU.
Yeah,
That's why.
exactly. Well, this is fucking 2002. But so it's interesting. So you were very similar to me in that I knew who Spider-Man was. I didn't know, by the way, Marvel and DC. Like I didn't understand. I didn't know that probably until
I knew it.
Suicide Squad.
I just knew I knew it
Make
everything
mine
I
Marvel.
read had the big DC logo on it.
I don't think I knew about a difference between the comics companies till 2000s.
You
well into
uncultured
2000s.
I knew that the Eastman and Laird, because they were actually published
I don't know
through
what that is.
Neither.
I still don't know what that is.
No. So they Eastman and Laird.
Eastbound and Down.
Eastman and Laird
Danny McBride.
are the artists that did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and it was actually published not through either.
IDW. Was it? No, it was later.
I forgot who.
It was independent.
What the name? But it was an independent comic. And so
I don't know.
It was.
And I mean, for all I really knew is that it had the big DC.
Koteas
It had the big
Casey Jones.
It had the big DC logo.
I know that from the movies. All I knew was from if it was live action, I knew about it for the most part,
Right.
and if it was good live action, I especially was into.
You know what? You know what's disappointing the most for me for modern day DC cinematic universe? The thing about Marvel is their rogue galleries have always been weak, save for Magneto and Thanos. Put Spider-Man's rogue gallery up against Batman's rogue gallery, and it's not even a fucking competition. It's like it is like a middle school team going up against the Bulls with Pippen and Michael Jordan.
That's a sports ball. For
I'm sorry. That's two. I apologize for two sports analogies.
Pippin, the musical Pippin. Yeah, I know.
Pippin?
About Charlemagne.
Oh, you know Pippin. But for real though, like you got. And listen, I still actually have a soft spot for Mysterio. I hope he does appear in a future Spider-Man
That's the guy
film.
with his head in the fishbowl, right?
Well, another funny thing about that is when Raimi was still doing storyboards for Spider-Man 4.
Yeah, I saw those.
The one thing that kills me, it's sort of like we'll never know Edgar Wright's Ant-Man, and it kills me that we never know. But Sam Raimi was going to have Bruce Campbell play an out-of-shape Mysterio just in a cameo in passing to start off the film. He's getting arrested and brought into the station, and Spidey's walking out and giving him a salute and saying, fuck you or whatever. But
Spider-Man doesn't swear.
He's
a kid
for all intents and purposes. But the thing is, when Suicide Squad came out and Queen, the song "The Queen" Bohemian Rhapsody's in the trailer, I held out hope because their villains are great and everyone in Suicide Squad is compelling and it could have been good. And then you go to Justice League and they pick Steppenwolf. Why haven't we seen Darkseid? DC has amazing villains, and it all comes down to they don't know what they have. And Marvel does.
Terra Incorporated. Why haven't you seen? I mean, there's like lots of like Earthbound villains.
Well, yeah, and that's what
villains.
That they tried to go too big. Because they're like, well, they're doing Thanos, and Thanos was a ripoff. From what I've read, Thanos was a ripoff of Darkseid. But Marvel took 19 movies to get to Thanos. Right, I mean, he's been there, but he's not been the main antagonist in these movies.
And my argument is that they get their property. They originally Marvel was going bankrupt, and they sold the rights to Spider-Man and Fantastic Four and X-Men to keep the lights on, right? And then all they had left was Iron Man and Thor, movies that no one was going to see, right? But they knew their characters. They had people at the top who got what they had, and they made a good product. Whereas DC, they think about it. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman is a slam dunk, as big of a slam dunk as any of Marvel's casting. You have Batman, the most recognizable superhero in the world, but they can't.
I think Superman is.
I think that empirical evidence may suggest that Batman is the most well known, but neither here nor there.
That's a good argument.
They also have,
but
you know what? You're right. They
by side.
also have fucking Superman. They have so many great pieces and so many iconic characters and properties, but the bottom line is they don't know what they have.
Well, and the other thing though, with so Gal Gadot is great as Wonder Woman. I didn't recognize that she was great in Batman versus Superman.
No, she wasn't.
She was fine.
She was fine.
The best part about that movie,
she was
just there.
a better part of that movie than the awfulness of the rest of it. But
and she was in it for 2 seconds.
Yeah, it wasn't anything that blew me away. Versus like Spider-Man and Black Panther and Civil War blew me away.
Well, DC's like even a broken clock is right 2 times a day.
So I mean, this kind of leads us into Infinity War a lot, really, and kind of discussing what Marvel did right. And I just kind of pulled up like random bits from some of the movies leading up to this that I think are moments that are why these movies work so well. That even if the whole movie isn't amazing, they have so many strong character beats in between things you may not like or you may not agree with. So like this is, I'd see if you can recognize where this one's from.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
That is from Winter Soldier.
And it's one of the few times in.
I told you this. It's my favorite scene in that movie.
The elevator scene,
and it's my favorite. It's my favorite Rogers scene in the entire MCU.
It's so good
so
because
far.
it's you know that he's good. He's Steve Rogers. He's all about good. And part of it is him being like, I don't want to hurt innocent people. And the other part of it is
badass.
Yeah,
moment.
The other part of it is like he's kind of wants to fuck some people up because he's dealing
with.
with
It's a perfect opportunity for him because he doesn't have to choose morals.
He's dealing with bureaucracy.
They force his hand.
Yeah,
but no, honestly, the way that whole scene is staged, where people are getting on and off of the elevator, and then he looks over and you just see the bead of sweat going down the guy's head, and that's when he just kind of looks over, and then it opens and he says, "If anybody."
Hydra.
And that's where as the Russos, who have kind of carried this into the things, that's where I think the Russos prove their mettle with the characters that Nick and I were talking about this, how much
they proved that with Alison Brie in Community.
Well, I love the first Avenger, and it's very much a Joe Johnston Rocketeer. Rah. It's exactly what you expect from the character.
Does not get enough credit.
And it's great, but it's exactly what you expect, right? It's a very kind of straightforward,
perfect setup for that character.
I think saying it's great is a little bit of a stretch. I think it's serviceable.
Matt and I watched it last night, and it's pretty good.
I dig the hell out of it.
I rewatched it last week.
I did too.
We rewatched it 4 days ago.
I'm just saying, this isn't something I haven't revisited recently. I'm just saying,
I hear you.
I don't think it's a great movie. I think it's a serviceable movie.
It's the best movie ever made.
And you have Cap in that movie, and then you have Cap in the Avengers, And then you have Cap being brought into a spy espionage movie by the Russo brothers.
And a joke, Chrism.
Yeah,
Chrism
like,
film.
and it's like, and it's very much you're like, okay, you get to see this character,
Not joke,
how he
Chrism.
reacts in all these things. And what I love is this is from the first Avenger, but one of my favorite Cap lines also.
I don't like bullies. I don't care where they're from.
I love that is Cap's philosophy in general. He's going to fight the Red Skull. He's going to fight Hitler. He's going to fight Thanos. He's going to fight whomever. He doesn't like bullies. He doesn't care where they're from. Cap is pure good. And then you have, then of course you have Stark. I don't even know which of the amazing Stark, but let's try, how about...
John Grissom. That's who it is.
No, the Stark lines. I put one of them in the opening of the show, so I can't play that one. But I mean, I also like in the Avengers, which doesn't get enough credit either. Even though Joss is kind of on a little bit under fire right now.
I love the first Avengers.
I love the
It's
first
great.
Avengers, and I love things like this because that was the first time we got to see Tony Stark and Bruce Banner. How do those two get along? And this is my favorite
Your
line.
work on anti-electron collisions is unparalleled, and I'm a huge fan of the way you lose control and turn into an enormous green rage monster.
I love that idea of all these people meeting. I like that it's Tony Stark as a fanboy meeting the Hulk at that point, really. That he's meeting this...
He's on his retcon just like he did for Spider-Man in
Exactly.
Homecoming. He knows who they are.
Yeah.
But they've never been in the same room.
Yeah, and I think that's where... So you have all of those moments that are leading up to Infinity War where Marvel now... So now the Russo brothers get carte blanche to say we're bringing in the biggest bad that exists in this version of our universe. We know some of these guys are getting a little close to the end of their contracts, and we've got new heroes that we want to be making room for. We have stuff. We want to do a fucking powerhouse 1-2 punch movie.
We want to rip off Darkseid and make more money than Justice League made in 122 weeks in 4 days.
And what's great with this movie that, and like I said, I've don't be listening, Disney, but I have been rewatching my bootleg a little bit just because there's so many things I want to.
Who said bootleg, you motherfucker?
There's so many moments I want to. I forget because it is a long movie. And there's a lot that happens in it. It is about as packed from a plot standpoint, which is where the screenwriters deserve a lot of credit of getting from point A to point B to point C to point and doing it in such a way that it's the Spielberg line of running through the paint so fast you don't leave footprints. Yeah, maybe if you poke at these things enough, there's some logic issues. But even from the beginning, Heimdall dying and using the last bit of his dark magic, which ties up a plot hole from an earlier movie, to send Bruce Banner into the Sanctum Sanctorum. Sanctum Sanctorum, is that what it's called? Rick Santorum? Whatever. Doctor Strange's skylight.
That was originally the Silver Surfer.
Yeah. And so, but I mean, that's just a quick bit of plotting to be like, we can't have them both up here. We need Thor to be separated from him, and we need an excuse. We need to know why he's able to get to Earth. Oh, well, because Heimdall's been sending people to Doctor Strange because we learned that with Odin. Like, there are all of these things that have been laid out throughout these movies that the screenwriters are like, okay, let's figure out how we get this to it.
Well, you and I, Matt, when we first saw Civil War, one thing that stood out for both of us, I remember talking about this, is the writing. And it didn't get enough credit for it. Packed so much in one film without feeling too overloaded and seamless and really skillfully crafted. And don't get jealous. I was talking to my other friend Matthew, and one thing that really stuck out to us in Infinity War was the same type of thing. Is if you're watching just from a writer's standpoint, and it's easy to get caught up in the special effects and the glitz and the glamour and the huge cast and just the summer blockbuster feel, but like the writing is almost taking on a whole new art form when you consider not only do they have to make a cohesive story and a strong, three acts, they have to juggle all these characters, fan expectations, and over a decade worth of canon continuity.
They have to write those characters in character, which is what Marvel, I think, not to take any credit away from them at all, because it's still difficult. And I know that James Gunn wrote a lot of the Guardian stuff from what I've been hearing, is that he was very involved in their writing. But all of the voices in the movie, it doesn't sound like... I'm a bad writer. If I'm writing my Avengers movie, all of the Avengers kind of sound like Matt. and it's Star-Lord doing Matt things that Matt wants to say as Star-Lord or whatever.
Which is?
I don't know. There's,
Give us an example.
Don't shoot Thanos. They almost have the glove off. My God, Star-Lord, what are you doing? Everyone's going to hate you. Which I also, by the way, love. I do want to get into some of those spoilers with this, but it's funny, and it's funny without ever feeling too much like it's... So Guardians can be attacked for saying they rely on the humor, maybe a little... They always go to the joke, they always go to whatever. Versus Infinity War knows when to be... very much has a handle on when we are going to be funny, when we are not going to be funny, what jokes we're going to put in.
And when we're going to be impactful.
Yeah, and then how we're going to make you laugh for a good chunk and then make you cry like a fucking baby over some things that you know in your heart of hearts are going to be reversed, but the characters don't, and so it means a whole hell of a lot.
Let's talk about our movie-going experience when we went to go see it in the theater with that crowd. That crowd was a ruckus, energetic, crazy crowd, and we went in full cosplay.
It was fun.
Yeah, I gotta say that the Friday night, we go Thursday night to the first or second showing, and that crowd's good, but that crowd's they're nerdy like us, and that they're like, let's just focus on the movie. Right? We're all here to watch a movie. It's a very serious moment.
When you go on Friday, it's an event.
Friday was like a bunch of
These
dude
guys
bros.
were jacked up.
Nick was in full Star-Lord costume, and they were yelling at him as soon as he got into the theater. The one guy saying he may have been your dad, your father, Quill, but he wasn't your dad.
Yeah, that's right.
There were a lot of really just great bits, but the crowd cheered when every character was introduced, no matter. And there are 30 characters getting introduced in that movie. They all got applause.
Ben led the entire theater in applause when Thor
when Thor came back. Ben was
in Wakanda
erect, fully erect.
I have to say, so here's the thing about
it's my brother's favorite part, by the way, too.
Once you get into
Ben jumped to his feet almost.
There are two things I love in the movie. One,
Thor joining the fight in Wakanda.
One is the strongest Avenger, Hulk, being emasculated by Thanos, which was very interesting because then Hulk won't come back out again. Spoiler alert!
Yeah.
It's a really great turn because you know that's part of the character now at this point because Hulk has been defeated.
That's what happens if you sleep with Gal Gadot. You are never able to get it up ever again.
Right.
But Hulk Alice. Ask your doctor.
So you're having the presupposed strongest Avenger get emasculated, and then who is actually the strongest Avenger? The fucking God. Who actually flexes their muscles finally, and you're seeing how strong. Which, by the way, Thor's killing Thanos in the next movie. In my opinion, I think that's absolutely going to happen.
It's Cap and Tony with a lot of help from Captain Marvel.
Yes. You don't think Thor is there?
Cap will die.
Well, he's there, but he had his moment. See, Thor's had his moment in this movie.
I feel
Cap hasn't had his moment yet.
But he's
Cap has to make up with Tony too.
See, here's the thing, though.
Cap's gonna die.
Maybe Cap...
Marvel and
I think Cap dies too.
And Nebula are gonna make it possible, and then Tony's gonna nail on the final coffin.
No, but here's the thing. Either if that happens though, if either Iron Man or Captain America kill Thanos, they're killing Thanos with Stormbringer. I think that's what's going to
with the gauntlet. With the
Stormbringer or Stormbreaker? Stormbringer.
Stormbringer.
No, it's Bringer.
Stormbringer. I'll bring it.
It's not Stormbreaker. It's Stormbringer.
Brain her. Oh God, I don't
know. The new weapon.
His Groot axe.
Yes, his Groot axe.
I am Bringer, but
we just lost 79% of our audience. By the way, in the last minute,
one person tuned out.
Yeah,
but
sorry, Greg.
Or two, I guess. Here's the thing: when Strange has this freak out and sees the millions of possibilities and only sees one reality where the very Rick and Morty-esque one reality where the Avengers win, and he also said, if I have to choose between Spider-Man's life, Iron Man's life, and the stone, I pick the stone.
Yeah.
And you believe him. It's a good delivery, and it's weighty, and you believe Strange is going to hang everyone else to try to keep that Eye of Agamotto safe, right? And then in the moment when he can deny Thanos, this guy who's steamrolling everyone and only needs one or two more stones to finish up his gauntlet, he surrenders the stone to spare Tony's life.
Because it was part of that singularity.
Well, I feel like he saw in the one reality
Tony Stark is very
where
important.
they succeed. Tony is more important than the stone. So I feel like he's got to be the final blow.
I don't think so.
Now,
I think he saw that everyone that Thanos has to kill half of the universe in order for them to win at the end. That's what I saw.
Now I read. So I've been going through all of the permutations, the Doctor Strange permutations. I have kind of my theories, but I read one theory that was so out there, but it kept nagging at me. It was one of those that I'm like, this is fucking stupid. It kind of works.
Stephen Strange wakes up from a terrible dream.
They get the glove off of him for that half a second. Spider-Man's got the glove. I almost got it, and Star-Lord goes and fucks everything up, which I still...
Fucking Star-Lord.
I love that Star-Lord is that in that moment. I love that he is...
I felt very
so
guilty in the theater in cosplay.
Because as much as he is half God, he's human.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, human. In that half
Celestial,
second...
celestial.
In that half second, Strange gets a hold of the reality gem, and everything that you've seen... towards the rest of that movie is Strange using the reality gem
not going to happen.
to convince Thanos that he's won.
Wow, that's great.
Now it's a terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea.
And then it'll get inside your brain.
I'm
and you'll
fine
go,
with it.
Fuck.
I love it.
No, I don't like the "it's all a dream" nonsense.
No,
No.
actually,
like you said, Matt, I hope the next one is
Although,
really just full on back to the.
That's my theory. Is it's back? We're doing Back to the Future 2. We're going to revisit moments from the last 10 years of the MCU.
I think he took his wallet.
I think we're going to revisit, and the one thing that they talk about the most in this movie is New York. I think we're going to go back to the first Avengers movie, and I think we're going to do some shit.
We undo the damage that Scarlet Witch did in the...
We don't know. I don't know. Did they go back to Civil War? Did they go back to... Where was the thing? Civil War would be great if it turned out that the one thing that was going to lose it for us was Cap and Iron Man falling out. That's kind of a good... gravitas moment as well too.
I don't see that. I think you guys are. I really think that's overthinking it a little bit. Because
it's first of all, it's got to be time travel, and it's got to be time travel that's different than what the Stone has done.
The Gauntlet is a great Deus Ex Machina with all those gems that do everything. Anything's on the table. Anything.
Because
okay, well, first off, you haven't even considered the fact that all of these people who have disappeared into thin air after Thanos kills everybody could technically be trapped inside of the Soul Stone.
Yeah, I've been thinking that too.
I considered it, Ben. How dare you?
We haven't gotten there yet. That's still... you still got a time travel.
Damon Lindelof's going to come in. They're going to bring back Carrie Coon. They're going to full-on leftover send up.
I love that they did the full-on leftovers in this, by the way.
But
did you guys find Carrie Coon's character kind of attractive in a weird way?
She's very computer-generated.
Yeah. Proxima Midnight.
Ebony Maw was easily the best new character that was introduced in this movie, and I was so upset that he died. I really was. I hope the first thing that's done when they get that gauntlet back is they bring Ebony Maw back to life so he can be in future Marvel movies.
# bring back the Maw.
Dude, Maw versus Guardians for the final movie, I would totally be on board with that.
Well, I think at this point, the thing that we can expect is that probably everything that we're throwing out there right now is going to be relatively incorrect. I mean, I think that they're going to find a way to obviously there's
you're selling yourself short.
No,
you picked Cat Stevens. You predicted that Gamora was going to be sacrificed for the Soul Stone.
I did say that.
Don't say you're wrong.
No, so here, like I said,
subscribe to a great spoiler blog.
Ben Wilson spoilers.
All I know,
you motherfucker.
All's I knows.
The only thing I was thinking is that I don't think that Iron Man. I don't think that Strange sacrificed for Iron Man. I think Strange knew Iron Man was going, he knew that the only way to find a way to actually win in the end was to let Thanos win and to let him wipe out half the universe.
But Tony has nothing to do with it.
I'm gonna split.
I'm saying the Avengers has something.
I'm gonna split.
Of course they do.
I'm gonna split the difference between.
Of course the Avengers have something to do with it.
I'm gonna split the difference between the two of you on this one a little bit. I
don't know. Be mediator.
I don't know that Iron Man delivers the final blow.
He does.
But I know that Iron Man is integral into whatever process is kicked into motion to get everyone back.
Strange has foreseen
to get the band back together.
Yes, exactly.
I think that Tony Stark is instrumental in what will bring Thanos down.
Strange is going to order the dry toast, and Iron Man's going to get 2 fried chickens and a Coke.
I love when Strange calls him a douchebag, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
How satisfying is that moment?
Yeah,
I mean, there are a lot of them in the movie. But
and also, as they become closer, it also sets up the awesome facial hair bros reference to the comics that will not happen until the next film, which I'm really crossing my fingers for.
New York has wizards now.
but here's the one thing, and this is, I don't feel like a MacGuffin because they're still harping on it. The Russos said that when things happen in this movie, they are going to continue to reverberate. And so people have said afterwards, well, now we know all these people are coming back. And they doubled down. They doubled down a day ago. And they said things that happen in this movie are either permanent or they're going to reverberate throughout the rest of the series.
No one is. I don't think for a second anyone's erasing what has happened. I think the fact that Tony had a Spider-Man die in his arms. Tony Stark is always going to remember that moment, and Spider-Man is always going to remember that moment forever to come.
Who's going to stay dead and who's going to come back, though?
That's not what I mean.
Gotta find out.
So here's my one little prediction, though. Loki, Vision, Gamora, in the physical world, dead. I don't think that they're coming back.
I agree.
think we see Gamora again, but we see Gamora in the context of the Soul Stone.
Anything before the finger snap.
I see the people who actually
Gamora.
died.
I think Gamora's in this. Gamora 100% is in the Soul Stone, just like all the ones that are in the
James
snap.
Gunn is really good friends with Zoe
Gamora.
Saldana.
I think you're totally. I think look, Heimdall dead, Loki dead, Vision. But is Vision? What is
Maul
Vision?
dead?
What is Vision?
I think
did you tell
Heimdall
me?
dead? Yeah, no, I think everyone's dead, but Gamora,
everyone forgets about Heimdall. Don't forget about Heimdall.
Gamora, you're gonna see. Gamora is going to be one of those characters
like Yoda and Obi-Wan,
gonna help people. But yes, I don't think it's going to be in the physical form.
She's coming back. There's no way they're doing Guardians 3 without her.
Sure they can.
Yes, of course they can. They
got Sliced alone now.
That gives you the best launching point for.
Maybe I'll replace Gamora,
and
and maybe I
especially
won't.
she can still play a role in it if she has that type of role in it. You understand what I'm saying? I mean, if she's that type of character.
I don't think that works for whatever. If I'm
why
James Gunn,
then why are you bringing in these all other characters and stuff like that?
I'm just saying that Gamora died in the Soul Stone realms. She did not die on a normal planet in a normal place. She died in the one place where people go to exist in the ethereal plane.
And she's at the
she
end of the
sacrificed people to get
the
the people who have been there before her didn't get back their people, did they?
But they didn't have the fucking mitt. The fucking gauntlet.
The gauntlet's destroyed, though. The gauntlet is destroyed at the
You
end
didn't
of
need
the
the gauntlet to get the Soul Stone. You just needed to sacrifice a soul that was
The
close to
stones
you.
still exist, though.
The stones exist, but the gauntlet doesn't. We're not
So
you don't have the
as a little
stones.
girl, she's still in the
Eichel
stone.
is not going to make another, and it's not going to make another gauntlet. Though.
Do you want to make a Beauty and the Beast bet? You want to do this again? You want to go down that path with me? You want to dance with the devil in the pale moonlight, my friend?
For our listeners who don't know that reference, they bet before Beauty and the Beast came out if it would be a top 5 grossing film?
Top 10
grossing movie of
Ben
all
said
time.
that it would not. Ben said that it would, or Matt said that it would because he knows that Emma Watson is a money
Because
machine.
Nick was going to go see that movie 147 million times, which is where most of their domestic box office
Because
came
I
from.
don't download bootlegs.
It's true. Listen, look around my fucking house right now and tell me I've not given my fucking 30 coins to Marvel for this bullshit. Jesus Christ, I spent more on Marvel in this room than people that work for Marvel.
That's why we're not worried about Stan Lee.
No, I think Gamora comes back. I think the big weight from this movie is going to be everyone dealing with the fact that they did die. They did have this thing that happened,
Did we talk about Vision? Was it your theory that, like, remember the Avengers arcade game, and there's a version of Vision in the comic that's all white?
We sort of talked about that a little bit.
Well,
But
someone said, hold on a second.
A lot of people are saying that T'Challa's sister, I forget her name. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
She was sort of successful in getting enough of him out.
Right.
No,
but you can rebuild Vision.
But
Sure, yeah.
like you were saying, I'm bringing it back to what you were saying though before. Does something of this reality, even if it's a reverse eventually, stick with the characters?
Yes.
And I forgot. I guess it wasn't you, but maybe it was my other Matthew
Might have
friend.
been. That's fine.
He gets me. Matthew Barnett, if you're out there, you should subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. But Vision, if he stays white, you know that it was so. Another great part about Vision's death that's so brutal is, like, they set up how intricate it would be to get that stone out of Vision without killing him, and even Shuri can't do it, and then you just see after Scarlet Witch does the impossible, the unimaginable, and kills her love of her life with her power, and he has that great tear-jerking line.
I only
Don't
feel
worry,
you."
I'll only feel you, as she disintegrates him.
Which he says, by the way, earlier in the movie, which I did not catch that it's a
Really?
callback. He says it to her in Germany when they're, he goes, "I always feel you."
That's good.
And I'm like, it was a good, it's again, some great writing in that movie. But, all right.
But hold on, I almost finished. I'm going to tie it up in a bow, I promise. So, and then we cut to all the setup of how intricately wired that stone is. And then you see Thanos, after Scarlet Witch has scarred herself for life, if she survives, killing her own lover. And then he reverses it in a snap, and then just carelessly rips that stone.
Yeah,
you see the
brutal.
circuitry in his skull
And the
flail
color
around
drains.
and spark, and he just turns into a lifeless white husk, right? What if he stays white, which would be comic accurate?
He's not white, actually. He just loses his color. He's dark.
he's
It's like black and white.
Right, but what if that is a callback to the all-white Vision, and maybe they're able to save Vision?
Like the White Nationalist Party. The all-white Vision.
All right, Richard Spencer, back on point. If we bring back Vision, he doesn't get his exuberant color back, because a part of him... You don't like my choice of exuberant?
No, I just think his punishment is that he's not as fancy.
Well, they're not able to restore all of Vision, right? So he stays that sort
In
of
that color.
scary zombie...
Or that just is his personality now, because he's dark and, he
Maybe.
lost... because she's dead. She disappears. She goes into the dust bowl.
Well, and then one more thing, I'm going to turn it over to you guys to end up this.
Into the Dust Bowl.
The Oklahoma Dust Bowl.
The grapes of Avengers.
That's a movie that should be made. But like, when you look at Starlin's
Ballad of Star-Lord.
when you read Starlin's run, the Infinity Gauntlet comic run, it was really known for these brutal deaths. Spider-Man didn't, disintegrate into dust like he does in the movie. His head was crushed by a rock.
Right.
By the equivalent of Proxima
In the
Midnight.
background.
In the background, like, unceremoniously, Cyclops is put in a cube
is awful.
that he can't escape and suffocates from. Nebula is turned into a monument of pain,
It's like a specter.
as a zombie husk. The deaths are notorious and infamous in all of comics, not just Marvel. And even though Spider-Man didn't die in that fashion, thank fucking God. I was a wreck after that movie, the way that he went as it stands, but like they still reimagined how shocking it was to see these heroes that we didn't think were going to fall in an especially brutal way. And while they didn't get gratuitous, those deaths are weighty. Even if all of us in this room right now agree that they're coming back, it's still weighty. It's still devastating.
It doesn't. I like I said, I've rewatched this, and I know that there are Spider-Man movies coming out. There's going to be at least one more
another
Spider-Man
Black Panther
movie.
now. They're
There's
not
another
calling
Black
T'Challa.
Panther. We know that there's a Guardians of the Galaxy 3, right? So we know that, and I do love. I'll give a slight nod to Chris Pratt for my favorite death line is he just goes, "Oh man," like that. Star-Lord's ending is just him being like, "Oh shit!" I was just starting to get some respect. Oh man, I caused all this shit. But for me, as much as I will champion the idea that no opinion is wrong, the Spider-Man death in Infinity War and the read that I had on it is that his fucking Spidey sense kicks in. So that he knows, unlike everyone else, it happens to them. Mantis has a little bit of something's wrong. And then I read someone made it even worse for me because I was just figuring that the Spidey sense is Spidey, like his body's
The writing's on the wall, and I hadn't read it. I hadn't read it like that until you told me, and then that killed me.
Well,
even
then
more.
someone fucked me up even more than that.
Fuck, Matt! Don't do it.
Spidey sense is not just him. He's his body. His Spidey sense is telling him what's happening everywhere. And someone goes, because maybe Aunt May's dead. And because maybe Ned is dead. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ.
Marissa.
They fucking kill Ned and Aunt May. They kill Ned. They fucking kill Ned.
Fuck Ned.
If
If Marissa Tomei doesn't get naked in a future Marvel film.
Ned,
a la the
Ned
Wrestler.
is my spirit animal. I need Ned in these movies. Ned
Man
has
in the
one
chair.
line in this movie, and
He's
he's
the man.
fucking funny as hell, right? But yeah, that's the idea. That literally Spider-Man can sense it, and then he tries to fight it, which is like just that the kid in him, the kid idea of like I don't want to go, I don't want to go. And then I'm sorry. Literally at the end of it, being like, I'm sorry. I'm doing it. It is,
And then RDJ.
it's making me tear up
I can see
just
it.
thinking about it.
Matt's getting verklempt right now.
I tell you what,
in
man.
Homecoming, Iron Man says, "If you die, it's on me," and
Yeah.
then it cuts to him as everyone else fades to dust. It's brutal for everybody.
That death is done so, and there's a reason why it happens last in that thing, and then we get Cap's "Oh God," which is another. The only time Cap swears in the MCU is saying "Oh God."
well,
at
he
the
took
end.
the Lord's name in vain. I don't know if it's swearing.
That's for him.
Is it?
Well, I mean, I don't know if you remember.
I don't know. Refresh me. I don't remember what you're.
I was going to play that. I don't have it on here, but where he talks about where Black Widow in Avengers is warning him that Thor is a god, and he goes, "There's only one god, ma'am, and I don't think he dresses like that." It's like Captain America is Mike Pence if he were likable. It's amazing to me.
Captain America calls Black Widow mother.
That's a good thing to end on, right there.
Yes, absolutely. No,
But I do think that like Marvel right now, the MCU is so special because they have Feige and they have people who get their characters and care about their characters, and not to say that the DC Cinematic Universe and all the people involved in those films aren't working hard or care, but you get the feeling that just Marvel, everyone at the top gets their characters, they get their properties, and they do it justice in a way that Justice League doesn't quite get to.
I think you're right that it's coming from above. I think that the nurturing. I think that they realized they were kind of fucked, and they had a good thing with Wonder Woman, and it was the first time they let somebody else be like, okay, do your thing on it. We're gonna watch you. We're gonna make sure it fits into our whatever our overall plan of shittiness. Don't make it too good because it's gonna elevate us.
It was a win just for DC to beat Marvel to the female lead punch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they're like, go Patty, go, and look what happened.
And it's the only thing they have going for them right now.
Yep.
And
It is.
and the problem is it's not something they can necessarily build off. The problem with building off of Wonder Woman is she's so good that's why you don't start the MCU with Cap. Right? If you start with Cap and he's the linchpin, and then you go to Tony Stark, it's too jarring in the wrong direction of like we're going from abject like goodness to snarkiness. You start with the snarkiness, and then you work into we're going to have a god and we're going to have this person that's all about good. The way that the MCU did it, they built it in the right order, I think. And the problem is right now there's no way to get out for DC. First, is just keep making Wonder Woman movies like Wonder Woman. And honestly, at this point, I don't think the DC needs to have a DCU. I think they just go ahead and
make
have
some
standalone
movies. Make one movie.
I love Batman '89. I didn't care that there was
Yeah?
no Flash and there was no
You're absolutely
Aquaman.
right.
Do we need
100%.
Aquaman? Is anyone clamoring for fucking Aquaman with Batman?
No.
Make a good
And
singular.
not Momoa's Aquaman.
superhero
God, he was
movie.
lame.
Reboot Batman. I love the idea of talking about Jake Gyllenhaal. I'll watch a Jake Gyllenhaal young fucking
Yeah, you
Batman.
will.
I will absolutely get
How
on
about-
board. Or
how about-
Nightwing.
No. Jake Gyllenhaal as, wait for it, Nightcrawler.
Not.
Get it?
Damn it.
Get where I was going with that?
All right. Anyway,
No, real quick.
killed that
Don't-
podcast.
I'm sorry I killed it.
Don't end on
real
that.
quick. Can we end on this? Oh, sorry. I'll take it back.
thanks, Dave.
Hail
This is the
Hydra.
third time you're
Sorry.
Wait.
What did you guys to end on? What is your take on Brolin's Thanos? That was a big
question.
character, and it people are saying he's the biggest bad for a reason. How did you think Brolin handled the role?
He was.
I mean, it was computer generated. It was mocap, but
No, I'll be honest. It was a character that I did not expect to. I did not expect for it to work for me. To be honest, I didn't. It didn't work for me in general leading up to this. I did not like the design on it that I saw in the previews because it just looked bizarre to me. It didn't make sense, and a lot of that baggage died very quickly once I was in the movie. Now, that's somewhat a testament to everything else that's going on around him in it that it's so good that it's hard to really focus on anything that you might not be. But I got beyond those moments very quickly, and I like his quiet scenes. I like his bit with Gamora as the girl with the fucking blade and the balance. And for the idea that Gamora has always been seen with this double blade, right? That through all of her thing, I like that there's a lot of things that are kind of implied there that are things that have been building up to that. I felt that he worked overall for me much more than I thought he would. And he was kind of terrifying.
Well, so
yeah.
the reason
I want
why,
to see more in the next one.
The reason why he's terrifying is because he's a psychopath, but he's also got a good idea.
Yeah, no, his idea is not a bad idea.
Yeah, exactly.
That is the important thing.
It's a bad idea,
No,
but it's grounded in.
It's grounded. That's what makes a psychopath.
Yeah.
It makes you, when you have an idea that you're willing to enact upon, regardless of what the repercussions of that action is. That is the definition of what a psychopath is, and so that's what makes him terrifying. Is that he is all powerful and has the ability to completely separate moral reasoning from actual logic, and that's what makes him interesting.
What's interesting about it is normally your villain. So let's look at like the fucking very quickly. Think about a movie like 2012, right? Where Oliver Platt is making the Ark, a terrible fucking movie, right?
Wow.
But normally you have a
Why are
villain.
you bringing that movie into this?
2012,
It makes sense, right? So you have a cataclysmic world event where you can only save half the universe, but everyone going on the Ark is a prestigious. They had to buy their way on. They had to be a thing.
Wait, 2012 or Noah? What are we talking about?
2012. No,
You said Ark. Bring half people.
The Ark. The name of the fucking thing that they're all getting into on, or maybe that's a Deep
That's
Impact.
Noah's
Deep
Ark.
Impact,
Starring Emma Watson.
Same fucking look. All of the cataclysmic movies tend to be that we're going to lose half the world. We're only going to be able to save half the world. Right? And we're going to save all of these people that are prestigious. You can buy your way on. We save the president. We do whatever.
Prestige.
So I like Thanos' thing is like, no. My plan is completely cold, and that it's rich, poor. I don't care who the fuck you are.
His word is fair.
Yes,
it's fair.
It's fair, and I kind of dig that.
Could Thanos have potential? Was he in the lottery to maybe die? Is there a?
Could he have
died if he snapped his fingers and disintegrated too? And he just, of course, he lucked out because he's the villain. Was he eligible?
By the way, that is I had that exact same thought, and
I wonder if they address that in the next movie.
It would be cool. He explicitly said, it doesn't matter who you are. It's a random shot. So I got to think that maybe it would make that decision
absolutely
even cooler.
And
I'll die for it. I'll die for it. I believe.
I'm on board 100%. That is a great way to give him another dimension to be like, hey, by the way, I could have been the one that went when I did this shit.
I want to see a little more of his backstory, and I still need a little bit. I still need to be convinced that he truly loves Gamora. That sacrifice to me, I don't quite believe after all he's put her through that he does actually love her, and there's still a lot of room to explore that in the next movie. But I'm still not quite there.
We'll see, and we'll see. I mean, she cries when she thinks he's dead. In that middle portion of the movie, which is very interesting also.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is a person that's been berated and hit, which that was also a moment that made me feel that their relationship, there's more to that relationship that we haven't seen, which is also great fodder for her to play in the next movie.
Absolutely.
To be like, maybe they were a little bit more buddy. Well,
Zoe was the best in this movie than any of the Guardians films.
He does say it at one point. He goes, "You fought by my side in a lot of these things." And you remember in the first Guardians, he sends her to get the stone.
She's a cold assassin.
Yeah, and he never thinks that she's double crossing him at all.
Not once.
So that means he sent her on countless missions to do his bidding and do the shit, and obviously fuck up Nebula as well. But yeah, interesting. Just so many good discussion points from that movie, and such a just. I don't know how I've very rarely been that satisfied getting to the end of a movie and just being like. A little drained and a little like, oh my god, like I really was floored. And I remember, Ben, you told me for the first Avengers movie, because we didn't see it together. I think I saw that with Greg and Casey. But you called me right before I went to go see it, and you go, hey, you know how about they talk about in movies that there's like that one big moment where everyone goes crazy? And I was like, yeah. And you're like, there's 6 of them in this movie. Remember, that was your capsule review for Avengers for me, which made me so fucking excited to watch that movie. I think that
Which it's still true to this day. Like the first Avengers had those moments where it's just like, oh yeah, you remember that one badass moment where it's like
Thurman?
something happens. But because in the Avengers, like even the last set piece has 3 different moments that are just badass.
Well, and I think the capper on this is that what I've always liked about the Marvel movies, and this kind of goes back to where
everything.
No, where I was kind of talking about on the action side of things is that I don't necessarily agree that the action is I am more interested, other than the airport scene probably in Civil War. When I go and rewatch a Marvel movie, I am almost always more interested in rewatching the character moments and the interactions and the small moments that they're showing on screen with each of these actors and actresses just fucking nailing it.
And anything that involves Kat Dennings.
And well, I do replay those quite a bit, but
every night.
It's like I think that's what's so special and amazing about what Marvel's doing is that those are the moments that I'm most interested in. I go back and watch the action scenes in Infinity War, and it's the interplay, it's the banter that I'm much more interested in than what's actually happening in
the casting is perfect. I mean, Benedict as Strange has gotten better and better and better at every appearance. Holland is a tour de force. For my favorite character, I've been waiting for so long for them to get Spider-Man right, and I can't tell you what it means to me to see Holland nailing it like this.
I'm dropping webs.
All right.
Anyway, we hope you enjoyed this super spoiler-laden. And so
I sure did.
Some of you out there probably were never going to watch this movie, and this podcast means nothing to you. Some of you have watched the movie, so hopefully you enjoyed it. And some of you hopefully are not listening to this being like, well, I guess I don't need to see the movie.
No, you still should see it.
No matter what, I think there is something special about seeing this movie cold and enjoying it, but there's nothing at all lost in rewatching this movie.
Or you can enjoy it at a comfortable temperature.
It is a great,
with a light jacket,
movie.
Perhaps.
A light jacket. There we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, we thank you so much for listening to The New Way. I'm going to leave you with a...
hey, good podcast, guys. That was quality.
That was a good one.
Cast.
We did well.
Quality cast.
I'm going to leave you with a Tony Stark quote from the first Avengers movie to finish us off here. Not that way, Ben.
Don't make that gesture.
And we thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, hey. All right, good job, guys. Let's just not come in tomorrow. Let's just take a day.